Hey guys, welcome to the second part of the first episode of Live Your Legacy podcast with Ben and Mike. As you can tell, we're a little bit different outfits today and a little bit different angle. That's because, well, this is our first episode. We're making some things work, some changes, and also a little emergency happened in our last commercial break. So what we thought was going to be a 20-minute break turned out to be about a week break. So welcome to episode 2, and let's get going on learning about Ben Parker. So Ben, tell us kind of like your bio. Give us like your little bit of background. Is not born here in North Carolina, but very close in Virginia.
Yeah, in Lynchburg, Virginia, which is kind of like foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains. The place we lived is called Forest, Virginia. Haven't been back there in years, but heard that's all been developed kind of like Cary, Apex area,
Okay.
right? We lived there till. That's my earliest memory. We lived at another house before that near Roanoke, Virginia, I think. But living in Lynchburg, that was my earliest memory growing up. Was a great place. I remember, the big snows we had a lot of friends in the neighborhood. Lived there, started elementary school there, and then my dad took a job with Northern Telecom in Durham, in RTP, Research Triangle Park in North Carolina. So we moved here, I believe I was about 6 years old. So that would have been 1981. Date myself there.
Yeah.
But that would have been 1981. We moved here, started to go to school in Durham, Pearsontown Elementary, which I believe still exists there. Following year, parents divorced, moved into an apartment complex still in Durham, stayed in the same school. Went through elementary school. When I was transitioning to middle school, decided to move in with my dad. My dad had remarried and lived in Apex, so he was one of the pioneers of moving to Apex. Actually, right down the road here, there's a little neighborhood called Castlewood. And him and my stepmom had built a custom home over there, and me and my brother moved in with them. That was when I was about 11, 12 years old. So that was actually skipped. So at that time, elementary school was kindergarten through, let me get this right, kindergarten through 5th grade, and I think 6th, 7th, and 8th was middle school.
Okay.
And something happened there where when I went to middle school, I skipped like that freshman year. Right? So it was only 7th and 8th grade, so I only really had 2 years of middle school before I went to high school, where before you would have 3 years. So again, dating myself, but that's how I moved schools during that transition when they moved those grades. Went to Apex Middle School locally, stayed living with my dad until I graduated high school. Went to Apex High School, which has since been demolished, and they just built a brand new school a couple years ago, right? Graduated in 1993 from there, had a little experiment going to college at East Carolina University for a semester, like a lot of people do. Ended up doing other things. I was trying to work, actually working the night shift, stocking groceries at Food Lion in the town next to Greenville, Little Washington. And trying to make a 7 o'clock psychology class the next morning just didn't work out with my work schedule and partying schedule, right?
Right.
So moved in with my dad. Moved in with my dad. At that time, my parents had started having my stepmom and dad had started having kids. Stepmom was 10 years younger than my dad, so they started having children as I was leaving high school, going to college. And so they had a nanny that they brought. This is called au pair. They bring them from Europe. It's like an exchange student type program, but more of just like a paid nanny. They give them a car, and they go to school here, like one class at Wake Tech, like continuing adult education, And at that time, my current wife Nina was their au pair.
Okay.
So that was how I was introduced to her one day. Came home from school, and there she was, and ended up conveniently moving back in with Dad, and that relationship blossomed. About a year later, she had to go back to Sweden. That plan, I knew I was in love and wanted to ask her to marry me and all of that stuff. At that time, the plan was sell everything, move to Sweden, right? That didn't happen because when I went over to visit for that, I got a work permit, went up to New York City in some big skyrise, met with the Swedish consulate, got the work permit. Passport was all done, had sold everything I owned, sold my beloved 1992 Mustang LX50 Candy Apple Red, right? Basically most of my possessions. And was really prepared to go, but then went over, I believe it was a 2 to 4 week trip. I think it was like a month trip. She may correct me on this at some point. But we just decided the best thing for us was for her to move over here. I already had an established job framing houses, which paid really well at that time. And just we felt like the opportunity was here. Thank God we made that decision now in hindsight. I think that was probably the best decision for us.
Okay.
And then, just started a family, started working, kept working framing, worked my way up in that industry, took a blueprint reading class at Wake Tech to show my boss I wanted to learn. I wanted to be the foreman of the job. Ended up partnering with a guy from Montreal who had some investment money in the area. We dabbled in development here locally in Apex with a group of French Canadian investors. That job went 20 years, right? So I started that job when I was 20, ended that job when I was 40. Framing houses was our main business. I think at the height of that business, we were framing 30 houses a week. So it was grueling, physical. I was the manager, so I was managing 30 crews with, anywhere from 6 to 10 guys on each crew. Very demanding job. There was warranty. There was moving materials constantly. There was dealing with superintendents on a whole nother level, right? And their superiors. Not to mention the office things and chasing the money and making sure everybody's documents were. So and at that time, Nina had actually, she was working with us part-time because we started having children and I needed her to be working a little bit financially, right? So he hired her to run the books and the office part. So that worked out great for us, right? Got full benefits, health insurance and everything. And then the recession hit. Now, not at the end of the 20 years, but,
Yeah, well, you were still working.
2008, whatever area that was. When the recession hit, before that, I would get a very lucrative, 20, 30K bonus come December. Right. And that subsidized my base salary and all of those benefits. And we really counted on that money every year. And now all of a sudden that was gone, right? So we adjusted. It was kind of a big deal, but not really a big deal for us because we never really, that money was kind of extra money, but about half of that we needed, right? So Nina decided to get her real estate license, right? During that period, it may have been like a year before that. I think she got it in 2006, maybe somewhere around there. 2007. But it was during the recession, I remember, when she had her license. And the first year, she sold one house. Second year, 3 houses. Third year, 7. And at that point, when she sold 7, it was like borderline at that point. We had been borderline the first 2 years. I think at the end of the second year, I begged her to stop. I was like, we're losing money. She'd taken money. She borrowed money from my boss at that point to get her first, her license running in MLS dues and all of that. And again, I'm quoting what she just told us in her interview the other day, right? We also interviewed her. But that's how I remember it. And it was a struggle then. And I begged her to stop real estate. I was like, I know this is your passion, but unless something changes, we can't do this every year if you're only selling 1 to 3 houses. And then that next year she sold 7, and then the tides changed, right?
Yeah.
Because the brokerage she was at that time the model was set up to where you know, she was still getting, let's say, 70% of that money, right? So for us, like, that took care of the problem that we had at that point,
right,
of me not having the extra income. And then when she joined Keller Williams, I think it was that following year, that's when things just, the trajectory just, we knew at that point that that real estate would be a part of our life after that. It was always something that I was kind of interested in. Being the framing supervisor, I spent a lot of time with the project manager, and their office would be in the model home. So I would get to know all the sales agents. A lot of those guys that were sales agents and women back then in the late 90s up till, you know, 2000 and let's say 14 or 15 when I became a real estate agent, I'm still great friends with, you know, and still have relationships with those people. So turning back the page to continue on, you know, how things went from there. Her business kept growing. We decided there was a point. Well, she actually came to me and said, "Look, I'm ready to stop working at all for you guys. I've got to focus 100%. This is what we need to do. You know, if I want to focus on real estate, I'm quitting the job."
Right.
And I had kind of been burnt out for a while at that point. I started becoming burnt out that year, like when I turned 39.
Okay.
Right. Physically, it just was not fun anymore. There's a lot of physical prowess and positioning going on in that job, and dealing with you know, the guys' paperwork, documentation, insurance, right? It became a hassle because they would throw that back on us, right? Their tax documents and their workers' compensation and stuff. So it was really complicated.
Okay.
There were other people brought into the business that we really didn't jive. And the biggest thing were, I had two superintendents underneath me. Both of those guys were like out, you know, they decided they were moving on, right?
Okay.
My one superintendent, Lee, who's still a great friend of mine, really respect him. He's moved on. Now he's a financial advisor. And Mike, a younger guy than me that I had hired during that time, he's still a supervisor for construction company, but at a higher level now, right? Okay. Like a senior manager. So those guys have gone off and done real well. So I didn't feel so bad knowing that they were taken care of, right?
Yeah,
that
right.
was the main priority. So around 2000 and let's say 14, 15, decided I would go get my real estate license in the hopes that I could help Nina, right? She was discussing building a team at that point. Things were really, I could see that she was stressed out and needed some help. She asked me if that was something I'd be interested in. I was like, heck yeah, who better to be an advocate than a guy that has 20 years of construction experience for their client? Like, now it became, I'm the protector of the consumer, right? And I can drop knowledge, and that made my ego, you know, got my ego bumped there with that. And you know, I'll be honest with you, it hasn't been exactly how I thought it would turn out. Like in the beginning, I thought, hey, I will go work for, you know, I'll be able to work and build partnerships with builders, right? Do a lot of new construction partnerships and all of, you know, property management and everything there is in real estate. I can do all of that stuff, right? And the reality is, once you get into this, you really need to pick one thing and kind of focus on that for the first couple of years till you get some traction, right? So that was, you know, that's basically the history. I can repeat, you know, we can talk about how it started, where when I joined, started at Keller Williams Cary, right? I believe that Keller Williams is one of the best companies to start with, just from a training aspect. If you're a new agent, right, and you really need some guidance in the beginning and someone to get you focused and up and get your business going,
right?
Building a foundation, a solid foundation.
Yeah.
Learning how to talk to your database and to build relationships. We talked a lot about this, you know, in the past, about the building relationship part. I needed to watch Nina at work doing that, not just at home hear about it and in our spare time, go hang out with these people that I didn't really know. Right. Met this person at an open house, loved the family. Now all of a sudden we're at their birthday party, and I'm like, oh, it's kind of awkward for me, But yeah, it was. I won't say it was a fully natural transition in the beginning. She kind of put me in an admin role. Not my thing. If you did a personality assessment on me, that's probably the worst. I actively fight structure, right, and authority. Like authority and structure to me, again, being in the military would be might have beat some of that out of me, right, and changed me. But I would have fought it. I would have been doing some push-ups, man, and some laps, know. So, and I don't know, the rest of the squad would probably wouldn't have loved me so much. But having said that, like that helped me self-realize that, and also the environment when I moved from construction, which is a very archaic environment at the workers level, even as a manager, to an environment where people come in dressed in a suit and it's professional and we're licensed. So there's standards put in place, right? With framing, if there's 3 guys, a nail gun, and a truck, you're a framer. So in North Carolina, you don't need a license to be a carpenter. Okay, in Florida, I believe you do, and there's some other parts of the country where they're like up in New York, they have a union and stuff. We don't have that in North Carolina, right? So to me, it was also an opportunity to shift into self-education, being a more educated professional atmosphere, if that makes sense. And so, I at 40 years old, quit the job, came on full-time with Nina. At that point, she was building a team with KW Carey. From there, we ended up moving into a little office downtown Apex, starting, we already had Nina Parker Realty Group was the name of the company. Built that. She had I think we had about 25 brokers underneath us when one of the local Keller Williams owners came to us and kind of discussed us going, doing what we're doing now, which is buy into the franchise, open up a market center. I think that was a pretty natural, transition for us from that little boutique brokerage to this. We were struggling with how to provide value for the agents at that time, beyond the level that we were, beyond having that location downtown Apex, which was fabulous for lead generation. When and if you can get agents to be there with the door open or during festivals and stuff, it's a great location for lead generation. Not always capitalized on. I think I did that more than most of the people that work with us. But this was a great move to provide a higher level of interaction with people across the country, and to grow and build a business that we could be proud of and say, hey, we helped hundreds of people instead of we just helped 20 people. Right.
Which still is great.
It's still it was great. It was good.
But you wanted to do more.
It was great.
Yeah. And that's we talk about that a little bit. Like, it's great to help even one person. Some people, that's all they want to do is one transaction a year and help one family a year. But you guys said 20. We'd love to do more. We want to help more people. And so it sounds like you and Nina said, this is how we help the most amount of people, the most effective way.
Yeah, and we're different personality types, but we do share one thing in common. We are driven individuals, self-driven. We don't, if I was to find something in common with my wife, when we wake up in the morning, we are both motivated to go make stuff happen that day. There's not a day that we wake up and go, hey, we just want to do nothing.
Right.
If it's not here at work, we're doing something at home. If it's not at home, we're traveling. If we're not traveling, we're with family. Like we've made a commitment to each other. We're sharing our 25th anniversary this year, and there's been big struggles like every marriage has, like every relationship has, right? How many friends do you have that you've had for 25 years?
Yeah.
Good friends.
Well, I'm not even 25, so.
But,
But yeah, I know, I get what you're saying.
20 years down the road, you'll
Yeah.
look back at that and go,
Yeah.
you know, that's an accomplishment, and you're going to analyze it and go, why is that?
Mm-hmm.
Right? We share that. If there's nothing else that we share, that one thing makes life really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
It makes life worth living. It makes you feel good. It provides the steam, the energy every day. When I wake up, I know we're doing the best what Ben can do in a day and what Nina can do in a day. And if something happens in the middle, we're a team that deals with that, right? We're supporters for each other. Again, there's days, right? Everybody has bad days. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying as a general standard or practice, we both wake up every day ready to help others, you know, and build a business and create relationships. I will say the way she analyzes that is a little bit different than me. How do I say this? Like, if someone comes to me with a problem, I probably think that I already know the answer or like what they could do or what they should do, but it might not be something that they're willing to do, right? Like, I can give you suggestions of how to go get another listing, how to get another buyer. I could give you suggestions on what scripts to use. But it's tough when you have that confidence and you're trying to impart that to someone else who doesn't have the experience. That's where the gap is, and it's hard. It's been tough for me in this industry to learn that when I say things and it comes out a certain way, when Mike says it's going to come out a different way, and how to adjust there, right? I'm still learning that part, right? I think that's why. I've attempted to have a team 2 times now. Didn't work out. I invest a lot in that person, and then we come to the realization that it's not a good fit afterwards. I think I'm ready now to do that before, right? So the next hire that I would make, buyer's agent or admin or whatever, it would really be a lot deeper analysis than hiring them. And like a lot of times, Nina will hire someone and then shuffle them around or create a position for them, create a business for them. I mean, she's done this 8 times, right?
Yeah.
Create an entire business for this person. Home inspector, photographer, admin, right? Red team. I mean, this is how her mind works. So, when you talk about an interview with Ben, you get a little bit of that just because we're partners in this, and as much as we keep our jobs separate, our job descriptions, and try to keep that separate, we both encourage each other to excel. And I'm constantly learning from her. Don't know if she's learning from me much, but yeah, it's been, that's part of the journey, man. Is like constantly gaining more perspective from those people around you, the other agents. Whether it's less experienced or more experienced, everybody has something to offer. Yeah. Right. Again, why are we doing the podcast?
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about just a few things that you kind of bullet pointed on. First of all, I really want to talk about, and we will mention this. We plan on interviewing the mayor of Apex. But just from your personal perspective, I mean, you moved to Apex real young. I mean, you've seen firsthand Apex's growth. What does that look like, Apex, when you move here, and Apex today, as we're talking right now?
Yeah, I mean, Apex, when I moved here, I'm not quite sure what the population was. It could have been 3,000 or 10,000 people. But it was a quiet suburb tobacco farming town. So there were a ton of tobacco farms, a couple of horse barns. my best friend in middle school, father was a dentist and tobacco farmer. At that time, his grandfather was still alive, and the uncle lived across the street, and there was a bunch of kids and cousins, and we would help them plant the tobacco, prime the tobacco, work the tobacco, right? And we would spend a lot of time on the farm. We'd stock the ponds and go bass fishing and get in all kinds of trouble. We were driving an old F-100, 1976 F-100 with the gold screaming eagle down the side, an old beater truck.
Right.
And we would drive that from Green Level, where they lived, all the way down to downtown Apex. There was a little convenience store down there. Guy would sell us cigarettes when we were, too young to buy them. And every once in a while a beer or something. But no, it was man, it was great growing up. Like I had like the country boy, stuff going on over here, and that was when, late 80s, early 90s, I mean, that was the golden age. I mean, it was, pop music, you would listen to Leonard Skinner, and you'd also listen to, you'd have Madonna and Michael Jackson, and you had Run DMC, you had rap coming up, and it was an awesome time in America, man. The styles, and, we didn't have cell phones as a distraction. We had shopping malls. The next generation isn't gonna know what that is, like really, an indoor shopping mall, right? And yeah, I mean, it was, Apex was we didn't really go to downtown Apex. There was nothing really there. There was like a laundromat, soda fountain. Yeah. There was no real like social life going on down there. A couple insurance agencies and whatnot, dentist maybe, like, it just wasn't a place we go hang out. Yeah. But downtown Apex, around that area, we would. But mostly Green Level. We liked hanging out on the farm because there was plenty to do there. So, and from then, as I got older, got out of high school, come back to Apex to, after the ECU little hiatus, that little 6-month thing, I was working and framing houses. And that's kind of when there was a big real estate boom here. Yeah. So, again, that was funding my family's growth as well, and still had access to all of those, that lifestyle of fishing and hunting or whatever you wanted to do. I wasn't a big avid hunter. I enjoyed shooting guns at targets, but not really the whole hunting, killing animals game. But yeah, I mean, it was great to watch the growth in Apex. I wasn't one of these people who fought it and was vocal about fighting it, because it was financing my life. Right. And I think that Apex managed it a lot better than, say, Morrisville or Holly Springs, or Cary did a pretty good job in my opinion. But Apex did a really good job of controlling the growth. It didn't feel like we were exploding that quickly. Now the last couple of years, last couple of years around here where 540 came through, where all those fishing ponds were, that broke my heart. But again, I haven't been over there in years, so really, I mean, it's
more the sentimental of it.
Yeah, it's just sentimental. There's so much positive change that's happened around here. I've never been an opponent of that. I've always embraced the change, and the population explosion. I mean, new schools. I can't remember a time where I had to shop at an old shopping center. There was always a new grocery store, a new restaurant, a new something to do. Right. And there still is, right? And even if one closes, there's another one. We've got this other restaurant coming over here. Yeah. Up at the corner. So, yeah, man, that's, Apex's growth. It's something that I think about now. How my kids, I have a 14-year-old son and an 18 going on 28-year-old daughter. and how they were raised, and it wasn't in that farm type atmosphere.
Right.
More of like a suburb. We lived in a neighborhood with cul-de-sacs and would hang out and stuff, but they still got a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Apex still has that charm.
Yeah.
And the location couldn't be better.
Mm.
I mean, especially being married to someone from Sweden, where and the way we enjoy traveling, experiences is a lot of where we spend our money. When we have extra money, we will go traveling instead or go do something. And being 12 minutes from an international airport doesn't hurt.
No. Yeah.
I mean, it's been, yeah.
Yeah. And so to go to kind of your switch from jobs too, to go from framing houses to now real estate, and you touched upon it a little bit, having that that nice knowledge and how it kind of boosted your ego and made you feel more comfortable switching into this job. But that has actually really allowed you to become a new construction and land expert. I mean, I know people in the office, we have an internal Facebook page where we ask each other questions, for those of you who don't know, and it's like, hey, I don't know the first thing about land, who does? And you're the first person tagged in it. I don't know anything about new construction, who does? And we get you tagged in it. We get Nina Golden tagged in it. I mean, you are really up there in land and new construction knowledge. How did that translate, and where do you see yourself using that most in your new profession as a real estate agent?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, there's certain aspects of this business where there's this unspoken aspect of it, law, where you should be this polished individual, talk a certain way, look a certain way, kind of marketing, I would say, right, in order to be capable. And I feel like my experience overcomes that, because again, sometimes I wear a suit coat and a button-down shirt. I'm capable of doing that. My profile picture's that, right? But I'm comfortable how I'm dressed right now. I can be authentic and genuine. And really how people do business is they first need to trust you. You have to build that trust with them, right? And if I'm rigid and stiff and I've kind of put my arms out and I'm feeling that way, they're going to sense that and go, whoa, this guy isn't approachable, and then the conversation doesn't go beyond that, right? And some people put up a block, and some people expect you to show up in a suit coat with a button, in a full suit. Again, I haven't found that in my career so far here, 7-8 years in real estate, that it makes much of a difference. I would say for the initial meeting or at a work conference or something, I dress up a little bit. But yeah, the experience and the knowledge is what really drives, the attraction there. Both for referrals from agents within and outside the office. I mean, you could get that knowledge. You could gain that knowledge from experience without having a construction background. That was one of my limiting beliefs in the beginning, was I need to teach all 25 of the agents at NPRG. I used to teach a new construction class to them. Do they really need to know all of that stuff? They need to know the basics, right?
Right.
How do you pick out a good lot? What is a good lot? What's a good piece of dirt? How do you determine that, right? And so, a lot of the area here is on a septic system and with a well or community sewer. Some people don't even know what that means, right? But when you don't know what it means, it kind of creates apprehension and fear, and then the clients can smell that on you, and then you're not able to help them, right? So when I tell agents, just educate yourself on a basic level, I understand now that that's all that needs to happen. We had a septic vendor that we're partnered with here, Holland Septic, come in. The guy did a beautiful demonstration for the agents. I mean, if I was a new agent or an agent that didn't understand land, that's the meeting I would have attended.
Okay.
That would have been of the highest value this year. So again, we'll probably I've asked him to come back so we can, feature him on the podcast and do the demonstration and get that video for people that can't make it to one of his. I think it's valuable information. You know, again, there's like anything else, land. There's maybe 20 to 25 different questions you ask on a piece of land versus buying a piece of property that already has a home on it, right? It's financed differently. There's different due diligence you should do on a piece of land, right, to determine if it's buildable, how much of it you could build on, or what part of it's buildable. All those things come into play, but it's just a matter of time before other agents in the office gain that experience. The new construction side of things, again, I think this is a self-confidence game, right? Nina Golden didn't swing a hammer, to my knowledge. Oh, no, actually she did, right? Didn't she? She had a plumbing company or HVAC or something. But give her credit for that, right? Her credit's due. But she also, from being an on-site, she gets to see the process from beginning to end. That's what the homeowner really wants to know.
Yeah.
What's next and what to expect. So again, if I'm in the middle of building a house and we walk into the house with the customer and there's a broken window and it's like on week 6 and we still have 7 months of build time left, the builder's not replacing the cracked window until the last week before closing because he doesn't want someone to break it again and incur an extra expense to you or himself, right? So, you could have a deal where that's somebody who had a particular mentality, was like, I want my window fixed. I'm tired of coming in here seeing it broken when you just explain it away, right?
Yeah.
But I think my advantage is when they fix it, how should it really be fixed correctly? Again, that's a fine line. Being a realtor, not a home inspector, not a licensed general contractor, how I'm advising people.
Right.
We have a home inspector, so I typically say, hey, I've noticed something, right? You can do this without my 20 years of experience. You can say, hey, I noticed something that looks off. Text a home inspector, call him. What is this? Do you think this is an issue?
Right.
We all have that. We've developed that in-house home inspector just for that one aspect of the business,
right,
to be able to lean on him for those questions, right? So does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah.
I think I went a little bit off subject there of you asking me directly how I think, where my value is as far as land and new construction and how that went. It's not how I thought it would go, and how I thought it would go would be I'm representing every builder in town.
Right.
I'm the next big thing that representing where Nina Golden has built that business because she understands the back end of the on-site marketing.
Right.
Where I didn't have that experience. I had the actual build experience.
Right.
So there's a big separation there.
I would almost say that translated you to more of a new construction buyer expert, where she's become a new construction listing expert.
Listing expert.
Which is two different markets and two different business styles. You know what I mean? It's both new construction, but the questions you're asking are the questions she needs to know, and the questions that she needs to market. She needs to do a lot of things where you need to be able to go in there and take your experience and say, look, this thing, I don't know how I feel about it. Or actually I know this and this is why this happens and this is how this works, and it allows you to have that procedure down.
So I didn't have that experience when I started real estate. I have that now. We actually represented a builder on a condominium project, which is a whole nother condominium project. Is way more complicated than selling an individual single family home on a lot. Let's say there's 18 condo units in the building. You get the building done, that certificate of occupancy from the inspector, right? And then the fire marshal comes and inspects, and now all of a sudden you're ready to start closing. You can't close one unit until that's done. Right? So now all of a sudden you have 18 to 20 units that are ready to go. So who's first?
Right.
You all close on the same day. You can't move 20 people in. So now you're a month of each person gets 2 days. You're 40 days moving those people in after that point.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Or maybe you can get 2 a day, but it's a long that process was completely different. And we had a full team that we built from agents in our office of on-sites that had to be trained. Again, Nina Golden knows that process because she went through the training herself.
Yeah.
Right? Carrie, our loan officer, she has that experience.
Yep.
She was an on-site for Pulte Homes.
Yeah.
So she knows that process as well and can answer questions from people.
Right.
So there's a lot of knowledge floating around, man. When you scale up from the 25 we had at NPRG to the 185 we have here now, a lot of different perspectives, a lot of experience that you can lean on, right? So that's what's exciting.
Yeah.
That's exciting, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to talk about kind of your guys' growth now professionally as you bring back NPRG to having this franchise. A question we've asked a few people and plan on asking more is, what is Ben Parker's definition of either success or being successful? When you think of that word, what comes to mind?
Balance.
Yeah.
For me now, I think achieving balance between my personal life, professional, and not necessarily separating those things, because we know that those are fluid, but finding a way for those two things to merge somewhere where you still have your mental health, your physical health, your spiritual health, and all those aspects that make life worth living. Like, I don't think anyone would stay in a job if it eroded any of those three pillars of your life, right? I mean, people do because they want the security.
Yeah.
But there's a point you can get to if you pay attention and you see the signs where you say, okay, now it's time for me to really step up and figure out this matrix, so to speak, of how all of these things jive together and find that sweet spot. We've spoken with Karen Coe, doing her interview. I think she's one of the agents that stands out that seems like they have a really good life-work balance and things kind of figured out. Keith O in the office, I mean, he similar, situation. Just a very even-keeled person. Those are the people, and again, if I don't have that, I'm going to them, I'm asking them, how do you achieve this? Right? So success for me is having people around you who you can share that with and share their success and feel genuinely happy for those people when they have small, large, monumental successes. When you realize that they're happy, you want happiness and love for everyone around you. It's not just about Ben and my family, because I feel like you guys are an extended part of my family and that I want the best for everybody. I don't, everybody's got people that are annoying them, right? But I still care about those people. I really do, man. I don't have many enemies, if there's a decent person and they're willing to put in the work and willing to, even if they're not willing to do that, I'm probably still an open book of knowledge and whatever I can add to the situation, whether it's, helping paint a wall or pick up some trash even, right? There's no job outside of doing something that I can't physically do, mentally do, right? That I wouldn't do for someone. Like if they really needed my help. And Nina's the same way, right? I would define success as a healthy balance there. Success through others. Those are the two pillars of how I view success nowadays. Didn't always view it that way, but through, self-discovery over the last few years, actually, becoming a middle-aged man, it's a change. If your parents didn't warn you about that, man, it's a real thing. Yeah. And you kind of find like a little bit more calm. Things start evening out a little bit, or they should, right?
Right. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's my definition of it. Yeah.
Great. And well, I like too that you mentioned a few people there in that definition as you went through. You mentioned people that you lean on, and not even just people that you lean on, but a real question that brought to mind is who would you say, and I would say barring Nina, who would you say is the most influential person on your life from day one to today? Who has really made a mark on?
I knew you were going to ask that question too, and I've thought about it quite a bit. Man, I would say on a personal, and I'd have to split this out. I'd say on a personal level, probably my grandmother on my mom's side.
Okay.
And the reason why is because she's always had a way of making me feel that unconditional love, right? And showing me how to give that unconditional love to people. And really just, even through the worst of times, right? How you can overcome those times and look at those as opportunities to grow, opportunities to succeed. And she did it with action, not just words. She showed us what that looks like, right? You know, I can't really pinpoint. You know, I would say in construction, when I was working construction and I was a young man, I lacked discipline. And I had a guy that I decided to go work for, and he really instilled that crazy hard, insane work ethic in me, this guy Phil. I worked for him for quite a while before I ended up moving to working for the Canadian guy, Paul. But Phil was really a catalyst in me from being a you know, lack of better terms, a punk ass boy to a man,
right?
And learning work ethic, and that you show up, if you say you're showing up at 6:30 and you work until 6:30, you work a 12-hour, you know, but I'm rewarding you for that. You will see the benefit.
Yeah.
You know, I'll never forget his girlfriend would do the checks, and if you received a raise that you know, that month or that check or whatever, she would draw a smiley face on the back. So we'd all grab our checks and turn them over on the back, you know, to see if we were worthy of the next level, you know, and he made me earn every 25-cent bump, every 25 cents, you know.
Yeah.
And I tried to quit him one time, and he came to my house. He came to my house and talked to my dad and was like, hey, you know, he needs to be back to work on Monday. And, you know, smiley face on the back of the check.
Yeah.
But he was just a really rough individual, but just instilled a work ethic. Now, in real estate, when I started with Keller Williams Carey, we had a program called Ignite, which is for the beginning agents. It kind of takes them through the Keller Williams models at a base level, right? How to get your database formed and how to build relationships, how to get things going, right? To make things happen, take action. And at the time, our team lead, I believe that was his title, Mark, we had a fantastic, talented group of agents at this time. I mean, a lot of the agents there are top agents in the Raleigh market now. He was really a force in just switching my mentality from a construction worker to a professional, teaching me those scripts and how to talk differently, different vocabulary to use. Now I still lean the other way.
Right.
I'll be honest, I'm not a pure salesman. But and again, like, he truly cared. He showed that he cared about our success. You know, I can't quite put my finger on it. We really need to interview him and talk about that moment and that time period. But he's just fantastic about motivating you through self exploration of what he's saying in the scripts and his stories of his personal life and those struggles, because he'd been through a little more, maybe an extra recession or a period of high inflation rates,
right,
and whatnot. And all of those stories matter when you're a new agent, because this market shifts, right? We're seeing a crazy market right now. But so there's a few people. There's not just one person, right? But I would say Mark is one of the people. He's now in Oklahoma and runs a market center out there.
Okay.
Done a fantastic job with that. He's a coach. I've never coached with him. There's reasons for that, but love the guy like a father, and don't spend enough time with him. But I could call him right now and have a 2-hour conversation, and he'd be there. So he's one of those people that you meet once in your lifetime that has an impact.
Yeah.
And the words he used and the training that he gave us, I still use it all today.
Wow.
7-8 years later, it's all relevant. So yeah, those are the people who's really made an impact. If I look back on it, I mean, I want to do the cheesy thing and say, my wife is the number one. Nina has taught me. I mean, I have a different level of access to her teaching and learning from her. But you've got to remember, like, she's been developing as a leader this whole time.
Right.
So the conversations we have now are like, now she's leadership, right? It's starting to go that route. So
Right.
that's the next step. If you're asking that question at some point, it's like those people, I'm talking about Mark was when I first started real estate. Now who has the most influence?
Yeah.
Right? It's probably Nina on a daily basis, because I'm hearing her struggles, with the growth and with leadership, and it's fascinating to me. I enjoy hearing it, and learning from it.
Right.
So, yeah.
Great. Well, I would say, and honestly, to probably wrap up, we've talked about now who's your life and your bio and your background and your story, and now we've touched on people who influenced you the most. But now, to influence and provide advice for the people watching, what is one strong piece of advice you would like to impart on whoever's behind that video right now watching you speak?
Yeah, I think, when if we're talking about in regular life, again, that's different than real estate. If I was giving real estate specific advice, I would suggest that a new agent, you find a mentor, someone, probably joining a team, right from the beginning. I mean, that's what I did.
Yeah.
Technically.
Right.
I joined a team. I joined my wife's team. But you really need to have a higher level of access to someone who's already done it. Find someone who's accomplished where you see yourself 5-10 years down the road. Join their team, soak it up before you decide to go down the rabbit hole, and and don't get caught up in, I need my brand. I need to figure out my name of my company, my branding, my business card, and all of this stuff. Like that comes after, really. Your job as a real estate agent is to build relationships, and once you start having deals, however that is, by doing open houses, door knocking, cold calling, or people, you're fortunate enough that people want to give you a shot, do business with you, right? Just because they like you.
Yeah.
I think people forget about that. Just be yourself, be a likable, approachable person. I want to be able to, a lot of people told me this, Ben, you're like the guy I could go have a beer with after we go look at houses, and would be entertaining and have a fun time with. Right? That's why we're doing business with you. And by the way, we trust you, but you're building that relationship. So I would tell agents that are just starting out to focus on that and do what's being asked of you. I had a conversation with a seller the other day and explained to him how when we list his home, I will look in the computer and see who the buyer's agents are in his area where his home is, the top 5, and I'll call them. It'll be a 5-minute phone call. It's 25 minutes. That's what it's going to take me,
Right.
unless I get long-winded.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a 25-minute series of phone calls to sell their home. And then the last home that was sold in the neighborhood was multiple offers, even though that was back before the market cooled off. But I'll call that agent and say, hey, and actually have a relationship with him and say, hey, man, you know, we used to work together at KW Carey, is how I know the guy. And we're friends on Facebook and talk now and then. But I'll call him and say, hey, man, do you have any leftover buyers that you'd like to bring to this new listing I have in this neighborhood? Just you know, another 5-minute phone call. So 30 minutes invested. How many agents won't do that?
Right.
It seems simple when I say it, right?
Yeah.
It seems like I'm making it real, but how many agents won't do that because the phone is like a brick? It's just too heavy, man.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, what are you afraid of?
Right.
This is your job.
Yeah.
You know, if they told you were flipping hamburgers at McDonald's, grab the next meat patty and flip it on the grill and then put it over here.
Right.
There it is. You know, and I think people overcomplicate stuff. You know, it doesn't have to be complicated. It's very easy. And you have to believe in your heart that when you cold call someone that has a listing that didn't sell, that you can help them. Right?
Yeah, the mindset shift.
That confidence that you exude in your voice when you call them, they can feel it on the other side of the, you know, stand up when you're making the phone call, look in the mirror, whatever tricks of the trade you want to do.
Right.
But no matter what you do, be confident about what you're doing and have a script have something to say when a question gets thrown your way that, one, you're not supposed to answer because you don't need to be an expert on insurance and mortgage and lawyer related stuff, right?
Yeah.
And just realize you're just the facilitator. You're the networker. You're the person that that's a great question. We have an attorney. Let me get you his information or her information when we get off the phone.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a fantastic question. We have flooring guy. We have a home inspector. We have a photographer. We have a stager. Sure, all those things. Well, we'll take care of it. You're the organizer now.
Right.
That's our role, right? And so people they make things overcomplicated. I would try to simplify things, you know, from the beginning. Get in some sort of mentorship role, whether that's on a team or someone like you have Rich or Nina or someone you can talk to.
Yeah.
When you have a serious question or you need a script.
Yeah.
You know, I have agents in the office that I've worked with the entire time that still, they'll send me a copy of the text message and say, what do I say here? What's my script? You know, and then they maybe don't use mine word for word, but at least if they get stuck, you can talk to somebody and say, and I know that's getting a little bit into like the backside of the business there, but it needs to be authentic as well, coming from you, and you need to believe that you're helping people. That's what our industry needs to understand. We are there to facilitate and be an advocate. That's our role. You know, everybody can go on Zillow and find a house.
Right.
They can go and search for a house and say, hey, I found the house. Hey, congratulations, you found the house. Now what?
Right.
How do you protect yourself?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And that's where all of those processes go. I've seen people that will work, 2 years just on the foundation of their business, and then their business trajectory goes up like this because they were really working on the foundational pieces of the marketing and building out a website and all that. When I say that, that's like 2 out of 2,000 people that really had that knowledge. And even then, they had a marketing background in college or whatever and understood search engine optimization. And as soon as they get it done, you know what they're constantly doing? They're chasing the algorithm. So it's not, you can't click buttons and go find business. It's not the core of most realtors' business. Right? 40% of homes are sold realtor to realtor before they even hit the market. 40%. That's almost half the market.
Yeah.
So where's the value? It's in building relationships with other realtors. Go visit the on-sites and talk with them. Talk with the other people in the office. That's where the business is, man.
Yeah.
Other agents across the country.
Right.
They'll send you business.
Yeah.
So you could pick any one of those 3 things I just mentioned and say, this is one thing that as a new agent, I really hit me,
Yeah.
and I'll do.
Yeah.
But you can tell people, hey, put everybody in your phone in your database and put everybody on Facebook and all of your social media, and they probably have 1,000 people.
Right.
But are they doing it?
Yeah.
They get caught up in how do I do that? Oh, I have to enter everyone manually. Well, yeah, you do. You have to put 1,000 in manually. So what? You don't have to do it today, right now.
Right, yeah.
Like, no one's going to do that in one day unless you have some AI bot doing that, which is a thing that's going to happen here in the future.
Yeah.
Right? But if you did 5 a day and called all those people, hey, I'm just confirming your information's still the same. Oh, by the way, I'm in real estate now. Would love to work with you at some point in the future.
Yeah.
How's the family going? Whatever, however you want to talk.
Right.
Right? The people that have done that, wildly successful. If they've taken action.
Right. Yeah,
Right?
I mean,
Take action.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, is that up here somewhere?
I'm sure it's somewhere on that wall.
Take action, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, that's great. Any other last bits of wisdom before we close out?
I'm looking forward to, getting these interviews out to the public, interviewing some really interesting individuals. I know the format now in social media has become more of a shorter format. And it may be harder to consume in an hour-long interview or whatnot, but I truly believe that we will bring value by who we're interviewing and what they have to say, where it's worth watching until the end of the interview every time. Sometimes it takes people to warm up to you when you're asking questions a lot and get into a groove and really get that authenticity going.
Yeah.
And I found, when I follow through and watch those interviews or listen to those podcasts until the end, that's where the real juicy stuff happens. I know in our particular, like on our YouTube channel, we'll be putting links down in the comments for you guys to anything that's mentioned in the video. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to, the future of us interviewing more, successful people and a broad range of people that our audience can gain some value and some knowledge from.
Yeah.
We're education-based people and really care about getting the message out.
Right.
And we have some phenomenal individuals coming up. So yeah, I'm excited, man.
Well, that's actually a great way to wrap it up. To kind of give out the message of what Live Your Legacy is going to be about. We want you guys to take, even if it's just one tidbit away from every interview, that you can put back into your life and say, this is how I want to live the life that will become my legacy. And on that note, we'll wrap up the first episode, part 2 with Ben and Mike, and we'll see you guys next week.
See you later.